In July of this year, crude oil hit its best levels since the end of 2018. But since then, it's been a bit of a different story with the price weakening. So is the top for 2021 already in for crude oil? And are we going to see a sell-off into the rest of the year? I thought it'd be interesting to take a more medium-term view on the price of crude. We've had this great recovery now since April of 2020, where famously the futures price went negative and the cash price dipped below $12, ran up above 76 in July. But since then, we have seen something of a sell-off, a correction, whatever we want to call it, one of the deepest ones we have seen during this recovery since the April low. So I'm wondering, what does the rest of the year hold for crude oil? Where could the opportunities be? As usual, in this video, I'll talk a bit about some of the recent news, the levels to watch, then we'll come back onto the platform and see if there's a trade to do. We do have a couple of trades running at the moment, interestingly in opposite directions. There's a Brent oil trade from the 9th of August, buying in at 67.85. That's up about just over £300 so far. And the latest trade on West Texas crude was a short from the 2nd of September, from 68.84. The price has moved, or is currently about $1 against me on that trade, so I'm down £85. So I'm just wondering what the opportunities are from here with the price just below $70 at the time of recording. Buy or sell? I'll talk a bit about the recent news, then we'll come back onto the charts and look at things in more detail. Hello, I'm David Jones from Capital.com, and I thought we'd do an update, a slightly longer term outlook for oil, because I think we've got something of a mixed picture when it comes to the price of oil, but let's talk about that a bit more in a second. So as usual in this video, I'll talk a bit about the recent news around oil. We'll have a look at some of the big levels to watch, then we'll jump back onto the charts and see if there's another trade to do. If you're watching this and you haven't subscribed, if you could click on subscribe, it does help support the channel, and it means we can continue to push out lots of different content on the markets that we cover throughout the week. Plus, of course, every Friday now at 2:30 UK time, I now run a live stream from the channel where we look at a whole host of different markets. If you're subscribed with the alarm bell notification pushed, you get a message off YouTube just as we're about to go live. Right, let's get into it and take a look at oil in a bit more detail. So it's been a good year for the oil price. We've seen West Texas crude in July hit its best levels. We had to go back to the last quarter of 2018. So the price of oil at the time of recording is up 45% year to date, even though it's off those highs set in July. So a great performance. But since those July highs, we have seen, at the very least, I think, a change in sentiment, albeit short term, for the price of oil. We have seen the price drifting lower. So that trend that's been in place since the April 2020 lows, I think, has lost some momentum throughout the summer. There's a few reasons behind this. We've had weaker than expected economic data from China in August. That was something that weighed on the market. Clearly, the Chinese economy is seen as something of a powerhouse for the global economy. Oil is often seen as a play on future economic growth. So weaker economic data is always usually going to affect the price of oil. The spread of the Delta variant of the coronavirus over the last few months is also something that had unsettled markets, with perhaps some worrying that restrictions may end up being put in place in some countries. And again, the knock-on effect this could have on the global economy. So that's, again, something I think that has been a little bit unsettling and has accounted partly for the slide we've seen since those July highs. The International Energy Agency, the IEA, has also said that it expects oil demand to still grow for the rest of 2021, but at a slower rate than we have been experiencing because of these concerns about the Delta variant and also slowing economic growth. We're still waiting to hear from OPEC, but there is some speculation that this week we'll hear from them revising down their forecasts for demand for oil in 2022. And even if they think that's going to happen next year, clearly that's something that could have an impact on the price now, because markets are always looking forward. So I think we're at an interesting point over the last couple of months for the price of oil. And the question is, well, is that trend over? Or actually, is this weakness just another buying opportunity before we see oil move out again to almost 3-year highs. I think you could make an argument for both cases. I'm leaning a bit more towards the side that perhaps we've seen the best prices so far in July. Perhaps they will end up being the highs for the year. And best case, we see the market just chop around from here. But let's see. I mean, no one's got a crystal ball, but we have seen clearly, I think, something of a shift in sentiment. Whether that lasts for the rest of the year remains to be seen. But let's talk about the big levels to watch. Then we'll jump back onto the charts. So the first level for me, we're not far away from it at the time of recording. It's around $70.50, the highs hit in early September. So it's a bit of a short-term resistance that's been the top of the recent range. After that, I'd be looking at highs from beginning of August at $71.60. So I think we've got a couple of hurdles within $1 or so of where we're trading now. On the downside, lots of support left. Big support for me, the bottom of that recent trading range coming in at $66.80. But as usual, to put some color on these numbers, let's take a look at the charts. I thought we'd start things off with a moving average for a change. So this is a 50-day moving average applied to the price of oil. And the way it works, the way moving averages work, when the price moves above the moving average, like here, in November last year, is considered a buy signal. When the price moves below, like here in early August of this year, it's considered a sell signal. And I thought it was quite interesting just to see what was going on with the price and the moving average at the moment. This is the longest it's been beneath that 50-day moving average this year. We'd need to wind the clock back probably to the autumn of last year. So probably this time last year, for seeing the price of oil spending so long below the 50-day moving average. When it moved back above it eventually last time in November, we had a strong buy signal off that. It remains to be seen whether that's going to be the case again this time round. And we have, just over the last couple of days, the price has managed to move back above that 50-day moving average. So it'd be interesting to see if we can get some sort of decent recovery going on from here. Let's take a look at the RSI. So at the moment, the RSI is near overbought, but it isn't overbought. The last time the market or the RSI was overbought, we've got to go back from June into July, where we had this bearish divergence where the market was going up, but the RSI was falling. Ended up being a good signal in the end of suggesting the momentum had run out of steam. The last signal off the RSI was this very oversold setup in the third week of August down here. So it's looking a little bit stretched at the moment, but no clear signal, I think, either way. So for me, as usual, what's perhaps more important is the price action. And perhaps this is where things can get a bit more confusing. So here's the trend off the April lows. This did a great job all the way up. We had another touch of the trend line, if we pick up on it, in July, the third week of July, as it was coming off from that 2.5-year plus high. But I think what's interesting is perhaps what happened during August. We saw the market poke below the trend line, looked like it was going to recover, and then bang, moved in August to its worst levels since May of this year. So slipped to a 3-month low in August. And I think, clearly one of the questions now is, well, is that trend over? We've seen the market do a great job of recovering off the April lows. Given what's happened with the price action over the last month, has that trend finally come to an end? You could also pick up on the slide since July, and that was potentially a new trend forming. Let's jump in and take a look. So that was the high in July, another high in later on in July, and then we saw the price slid. I'm just wondering, is the strength we're seeing the end of that correction? I think for me, the existing short I've got open at the moment on crude oil, the stop loss on that is in at 72. So I think if it breaks 72, I'll take the loss on that short, and it does look like perhaps then we've seen the end of this correction. But I think given some of the uncertainty around at the moment about how strong the economic recovery is going to be from here and the demand for oil, perhaps we will see just perhaps more of a sideways trading market in the months to come towards the end of the year. I do think the moves we've seen during August do suggest that this trend, if it's not over, is definitely in trouble, this recovery off the April low. So for me, I think we could well see just some range-bound trading from here. And I reckon, famous last words, it will be some time until we see those July highs above $76 broken. If we're looking for perhaps more dramatic targets, I'm thinking we're going to see a sideways market. If we're going to be a bit more aggressive, I suppose if we expected the weakness that's been in place since the July high to continue, one next target for me would be the lows from March coming in around $57. So I think if we saw the market turn down again in the days ahead, perhaps that's an interesting medium-term target if we're going to see those August lows broken. If I end up being wrong and we see the market rally strongly from here and move out to fresh all-time highs for the year, this would be a pretty major break because we'd also be taking out pretty much these highs from October 2018. So if it does manage to break, let's call it $77. I think clearly any worries about that trend being over are out the window and we can start being pretty bullish. And again, perhaps even looking at a move towards $100. So I'd keep an eye on that high for the year so far, but I can't help feeling that given the weakness in the trend over the last couple of months, quite a bit of the wind has been taken out the sails for the price of oil, but we'll come back to it and keep an eye on it as the months unfold. That's it for this update in oil. I think it's going to be a really interesting end to the year. Like I say, I think that perhaps we are seeing a change in sentiment, a loss of some of that momentum. We'll see how it plays out. We'll do an update, come back to it, but perhaps we'll see the price of oil at year end about where we are now or maybe a bit lower. But for now, we'll leave things there. So from me, David Jones and Capital.com, good luck with your trading. For more trading videos just like this, please subscribe to our channel.